Kevin Parle must be found. Kevin Parle will be found.
Before we move on to specifics of the book, for anyone that perhaps doesn't know the story or didn't listen to our first episode, I mean, you've gone a long way through this episode if you haven't listened to the first one, but do you want to just explain Kevin Parle's horrific crimes or the crimes that he's supposedly have committed?
The crimes he's wanted for.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Liam Kelly was a 16-year-old boy, and I haven't found anybody that would describe him as a model student. He got up to some shenanigans, but so did I when I was 16.
Yeah.
Liam Kelly was called onto a straightener in June 2004 in Grafton Street in Liverpool. A straightener, right, where people in the world of criminality try to get things straight amongst themselves. They always end badly, in my experience. He was blasted to death with a shotgun. 16-year-old boy, denied the right to grow, to mature, to enter manhood, to find a life partner, to have a family, to leave his shenanigans behind and provide for them. Denied all of that because he was gunned down. 3 people have been convicted in regard to Liam's murder. Kevin Parle, a court was told, pulled the trigger and remains wanted for this crime. He is unconvicted. He's not stood trial, but he's very much wanted for it. Just over a year later, in August 2005, a 22-year-old mother of 3 young children, who has been described to me as being as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside, Lucy Hargreaves, was blasted to death with a shotgun as she lay on her sofa in her home. That house was then set on fire. Lucy's partner escaped with their youngest child from an upstairs window. 2 men have stood trial for Lucy's murder. The court was told that if Kevin Parle had been, captured, he would have stood trial. However, these 2 men did not even have to present a defence to the charges because the judge slung the case out at what we call half-time. Right. Okay? The prosecution case then was not strong enough.
What is the evidence that he was there, that he was a part of this, and that he is a real person?
Yeah. Obviously, I didn't sit through the trial of Anthony Campbell, Peter Sinclair, and that young lady. But the court was told that Parle pulled the trigger. However, Parle, as I've repeatedly said, is unconvicted of this crime, but is very much wanted for it. He's on the National Crime Agency's most wanted list. My job, or the task that I set myself, is not to gather further evidence in relation to the crimes. I'm not investigating the crimes per se. My parameters are narrow. My goal is a clear and distinct one, and that is find Kevin Parle. And that is what I have challenged myself to do, and that is what I am going to do.
So I was intrigued earlier, you mentioned that you don't have, when Jack asked if you can spot things in London, you said you don't have a warrant card anymore. What would happen when you do find him? Do you just have to do a citizen's arrest? Do you get the police to get him?
I imagine you won't physically find him, will you? You'll find him or will you? I can't imagine it's going to be as straightforward as you, hey, got ya? Do you know what I mean? I think it's going to be
Hopefully
more...
he doesn't do that.
I'm going to deal with Stevie's question. Kevin Parle is 6'6".
Jesus Christ.
Broadly built, right? Still very fit, as I'm told, right? And 20 years younger than me, right?
Give it a miss, Peter.
If it comes to a street fight, there's only going to be one winner, and it won't be me, right? So I am not going to make some ham-fisted amateur attempt to slap the handcuffs on.
Okay.
That will be for law enforcement to do.
So your aim is to find his location? and then hand it over?
In essence, yes.
I imagine you get calls, or you would get calls from a lot of people, or people respond to the flyers and say they've seen them. How is it hard to pick out the diamond amongst the rough?
It has been a challenge for me.
Yeah, I bet.
But don't let that stop people from
Right.
contacting me.
Yeah.
Please, please do. For example, we'll talk about Spain. Mark and I went to Spain. I'd been told that Parle used a bar called the Chill Out Bar, and he'd been seen in the Chill Out Bar in a Spanish town called Albia, which is a few kilometres outside of Benidorm. So we go to our hotel, dump our stuff, walk off looking for this bar called Chill Out that I'd struggled to find a website for and to get very much information for it at all. But we eventually, after going around the houses for a bit, start walking towards this bar, and I can make out a multicoloured sign above it saying Chill Out. And I'm thinking, great, this is a bar where I've been told Parle has recently been seen. And as I get closer and closer and closer to the bar, I see that barrier tape, the type which you get at crime scenes, is tied all across the front of this frigging bar, and the doors are chained together with a huge chain and padlock. I've come all the way to frigging Spain to find a bar that's shut and has been for months.
Fuck.
I am not happy.
Mm.
Not happy in the slightest. Anyway, I get back in touch with one of my numerous courageous sources. I get back to the source who's kind of horrified by what they've heard, and they speak to someone else, and the source gets back to me and says, right, where somebody says he has definitely been seen is in a cannabis club, right? And in Spain and other places, they have these cannabis clubs or cannabis associations, as they're called, right? And you can pay anything from like €20 to €100 or more to become a member. You've got to show your photographic ID, you've got to be resident, and then you can go to these clubs, have a drink, and smoke your weed. Okay, we shift our focus a little bit, and the following morning, Mark and we're told where it is, right? We said it's between a bar called Cocktail and a gym, right? Again, in Albir, Albir. So Mark and I, we narrow down this bar called Cocktail. It's got a very distinct sign. Find the gym eventually, with a bit of kind of flamenco music pumping out and some ladies doing a Zumba class and all that kind of stuff. Trust me, I wasn't tempted to join in. Right? And we see this white-fronted building, and to me it looked like a doctor's surgery or a dental surgery. You know, it was kind of like that sort of sterile white frontage with glass that kind of looks like you can't see in, but they might be able to see out.
Yeah.
It just didn't look, to me, it did not look like the place that I would expect a cannabis association or club to look like, right? So there's me and Mark. Mark's got his microphone at the ready, always hoovering up audio for the podcast. Don't know if you know anything about podcasting.
Not a thing.
A bit later on, I can explain it to you. Right? And there's a bit of paper, A4, stuck on the door, and I'm looking at it. It's closed for refurb or whatever. Fortunately, it was written in Spanish, but then conveniently translated for me. So there we are, and we're having a peek around. I'm just doing my usual nosy, photographing the bit of paper because it's got a telephone number on it. You know, once an investigator, always an investigator, right? And no sooner we're doing this, and two blokes appear out the door, right? Two Mediterranean-looking young men in their 30s, and they said, you know, how can we help you? In very good English. And I said, oh, I'm looking for a bloke called Kevin. Right? And one of them went, oh, tall Kevin. I said, yeah, tall Kevin. And they said, what do you want to talk to him about? You'll see me closing my eyes and hanging my head in shame now, because in 40 years of investigating, you know, 21 years in the old bill and the last 20 years writing and broadcasting, but doing a lot of investigating, I made the biggest frigging ricket of my life, for which I am still beating myself up. I said, yeah, so what do you want to talk to him for? I've got my rucksack. I've always got my rucksack. I put my hand in it and I pulled out one of my flyers,
Oh,
right, with his picture on, right? The pictures are all in the book. And those pictures on the flyer are computer-generated images done by John Moores University in Liverpool to age him using computer graphics to give an image of what he might look like now. And so I showed him the flyer. But, of course, they are unmistakably taken from a police mugshot. And they immediately went, no, that's not our Kevin. Our Kevin we're talking about is 75 years old. Right. But, of course, you know what I should have done? And they said, what do you want to speak to him for? I've got this rucksack. It's always bulging, full and heavy. I should have just gone, I've got 100,000 euros for him.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? Now, if I'd done that, who knows where my investigation may have gone?
Wow.
Who knows what the future would have been?
Is there not a take two you can do with somebody else in a few months?
Well, I'm sure Kevin will have a read.
Yeah.